following is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Chapter 4. Adalind. My heart hammers in my chest, blood pushing painfully in my veins. Fear. So much fear. Facing down a tent full of orcs, each face monstrous to my human eyes. Their large frames ripple with muscles, barely reined in violence apparent in their posture. The awestruck, almost worshipful expressions they carried when they first entered have been replaced with rage, with it contorting their features and blazing in their eyes. It is to be expected. My curse has never been much of a shield. The shock of fairy beauty never lasts long before anger sets in when I do not act like a doll from men to puppet, as if I have no will of my own. I should almost thank Yorian in this situation. The last 5 years with him were excellent training at acting impassive and pleasant in the face of fear and panic. And the herbs given to me by my wise woman Malalia mask the smell of my distress from sensitive orc noses. To them, I must appear confident, in control, and perhaps even manipulative. For the safety of my people, I must be those things in truth.
You would destroy your kingdom and doom your people just to keep it from us?
Demands the loud, pretty orc. He looks as inhuman as the rest of them, but his bone structure is more delicate, with high cheekbones and a more sloping jaw. His ears are long and pointed, and his mouth sports long fangs, but no tusks. His mother or father was most likely an elf. From his placement at his king's side, he is most likely the axe or shield of the kingdom. I hold back a shiver of disgust at his voice. I had been warned about the smooth bass of male orc voices, but the experience is something else. Something about the slippery feel of the sound reminds me of when Yorian would tie me down, whisper cruel words in a sweet voice, and carve my flesh while I tried not to scream. No, do not think of that now. Stay in the moment. You cannot afford distraction here. Dismissing the orc with my gaze, I can almost taste his outrage in the air as I look back to King Rognar. Now, I would not mind if he spoke again. The Orc King's voice had none of the slippery smoothness of his advisors. It rasped and growled, a broken sound like rocks and glass shaken in a sack. It sounded so real, so honest. Everything about the king is that way. From his hulking build, even larger than the already huge orcs at his side, and his square brow with ram-like horns from his troll mother and even squarer jaw. Even the assessing look in his deep-set eyes. He appears to be exactly what he is, a brutal, conquering warlord, one intent on extracting his pound of flesh from my kingdom, but not cruel. I think of when he hit the table, the action reminding me for a moment of the violence of my late husband. The Orc King seemed to notice how disturbed I was, and had softened his hand, almost like an apology. A small kindness. Even though we are at odds, he and I somehow wanted to trust him. There are no pretty faces or words hiding his true nature from me, and I find I like that. Refreshing. Or so it appears, I remind myself. You only think this because of the stories Malalia has told you. It colors your judgment. Stories by someone who knew him long ago do not tell you what kind of male he is now. All this I think silently, but I say aloud. Come, King Rognar. Let us speak as rulers. You have your people to protect, and I have mine. We are servants of our kingdoms. What kind of servant would I be to hand over the keys without first ensuring its safety? I merely pose the question of whether you would like to agree to terms and have a land of plenty as your prize, or refuse and be king of the ashes.
Or perhaps you merely seek to save your own skin.
Bites out the pretty one.
Your husband started this war, and perhaps you worry that it will only be your head that will finish it.
My back stiffens. Zira tenses again at my side, but I place a hand on hers before she can get upset again. She is my greatest defender, but drawing a sword at this juncture could only cause trouble. I keep my eyes on the king, narrowing them by just a fraction. I let conviction carry my words as I say, if you agree to all my other terms, and my death is the only thing that will appease you, King Rognar, so be it. I am not afraid to die for my people. The words are a half-truth. I am afraid to die. I have never even been allowed to live, and dying without ever being truly happy would leave me a ghost riddled with regrets. But if it is for the people I swore to protect, I would lay my head on that chopping block. The angry orc moves to speak, but King Rognar cuts him off.
Gunnog.
The advisor stiffens. The king glances at him.
Out.
Gunnog stiffens further, outrage written clearly across his whole body. The emotionless orc on the king's other side interjects.
My king, in fact.
King Rognar says, his black eyes coming back to mine, ensnaring me with his gaze.
If we are to speak as rulers, perhaps it would be best if we did so without interruption. Alone.
He raises a brow in challenge to me, almost in mocking mimicry of the taunt I did earlier. Now Zira starts.
Absolutely not, Your Majesty.
Dame Zira. I cut in, my voice portraying a calm I do not feel. Alone. With him. You and the Gold Guard are dismissed. I will call you if I have need of you. Your Majesty, I must protest in the strongest. Your protests are noted, Captain, I say, letting authority lay heavy on my words. But for now, you are dismissed. The knight looks torn. I give her a degree of allowance not usually given to a soldier because she is one of the closest things I have to a friend, but I cannot afford to look weak in front of the orcs. Still, I can tell my callous dismissal wounds her. I try to soften my voice. I will be fine. King Rognar will not hurt me. I try sending a challenging smirk toward the Orc King, though truly the idea of him wanting to give me pain sends ice into my veins and bile to my throat. Will you, King Rognar? He does not smile back, but gravely inclines his head.
I will honor the parlance.
It is not a promise to never hurt me, and I find myself irrationally disappointed. Of course he would not promise such things. Still, his words have the desired effect. Zira gives a stiff bow and barks an order, and the Gold Guard exits the back of the tent. I tilt a challenging brow back at the Orc King, and, for a moment, something like amusement sparkles in his eyes and plays at his lips.
Out.
He rasps, his voice quiet, but carrying the force of a hammer. Without a word, his generals and advisors leave out the way they came. And then we are alone. I think back on my instruction about orcs and smile a little ruefully. Your orcs can all still hear everything perfectly, can they not? King Ragnar's face settles back into a blank expression, only his assessing eyes alive with movement.
Yes, but now there will be no more interruptions.
I rise carefully from my seat, slowly, so as not to seem likely I am springing any sort of surprise attack. Reaching to the cart next to me, I take the decanter of sparkling 𝐚𝐾𝐾 tea Malalia made for me. After a considering moment, I lift the crystal vessel slightly and tilt my head at the Orc King in silent inquiry. He gives me a nod so slight, one might easily miss it, but my whole being seems tuned to his, attentive to his every movement. I pour him a glass before refreshing my own. Passing him the chalice, our fingers brush momentarily, and my eyes are arrested by the black claws tipping his fingers. They can be completely withdrawn, I know, or extend another 2 inches. They are hard like sharpened onyx, not soft like human nails. Would he hurt me with them if he touched me? I wonder. Or would he sheath them and be soft? The spell on my thoughts is broken as he takes a healthy swallow of the tea, before his eyebrows raise in surprise.
𝐚𝐾𝐾 tea? You drink an Orakesh drink?
Why not? I ask back, settling back into my chair. It is refreshing, with a pleasant spice on the tip of the tongue, and sweetness in the back of the throat. Must one be an orc to enjoy it? Something seems to dilate in the orc's fathomless eyes, almost like seeing a star in their center, far in the distance. Perhaps it was not wise to speak of my tongue, or my throat. An unfamiliar sensation rises in my middle, somewhere between fluttering butterflies and a tight grip. An involuntary flush dusts itself on my cheeks. His response makes no allusion to my accidental innuendo.
It is my understanding that the fair races consider orcs ugly barbarians, and all vestiges of our culture a simple extension of that barbarism. I expected one like you to be even more squeamish.
One like me. He means very blessed with beauty. And to be called the fair races, it is a name the orcs have for humans, elves, and nymphs. Creatures that are made to be pretty and delicate, but with no strength or internal fortitude. Breeders to be played with, but unlikely to have strong offspring. An insult, the one he does not expect me to understand, I suspect. It is well that he does not know of my second fairy gift, the one that speaks of having the love of a great king, or his opinion of me as a weak, fragile thing would be solidified. Not allowing my offense to show, I instead send a teasing smile to King Rognar and take a sip of my drink. Squeamish about flower tea? Perhaps next I should faint when the breeze changes directions. This surprises a laugh from him. The phrase is a rough translation of an orcish idiom, and I can tell I have surprised him again. The levity transforms him for a moment. He looks warm, so warm. And I have been lonely and cold for so long. I almost lean toward him, but stop. What am I doing? Enticing the king is part of my plan, a way to sweeten the deal I will offer him. But to be enticed in return? I did not think it would be possible. Disaster. Curse you and your stories, Malalia, I think. As he finishes laughing, he quirks a corner of his lip at me.
Next you will tell me that you chew the blood root as well, Queen Adalind.
It is the first time he has said my name, and I find I like it. The sensation pools along my scalp like a gentle boar bristle brush, sending goose pimples to my neck. Men are not gentle, I remind myself desperately. Men are not kind. Orcs would be no different. I take another sip of my tea, gathering my wits and fortifying myself against the male in front of me. Only during war, I jest back. And soon we will not be at war any longer, so I have no need. King Rognar's expression becomes serious again, his impassive facade going up before me like a stone wall.
We shall see,
he says guardedly.
But first I will hear these conditions of yours.
I miss his smile already. My nerves rise again. So much of my plan hinges on this moment, on my presentation of these terms. If King Rognar does not accept, if he decides to continue the war, thousands of my people will die. The old guard nobles will not just roll over and give their wealth to what they see as barbarians. They will force their armies into service, perhaps even conscripting serfs and those too young to be in the army already. To add to my troubles, the most senior members on the Royal Council are not my allies. Leaving me to rule would not be something they would risk. Not with being who I am, an upstart commoner only fostered into nobility and raised too far above my station by a king who only ever thought of his greed. No, they would waste no time searching for the heir in an effort to oust me from the throne, all while the kingdom burns around their heads, and until it is too late to be anything but slaves of Auric. Not to mention, if there is a traditional bride chase, I hold back a shudder, instead forcing what I hope is a playful, flirtatious smile to my face. I say, "Do not be so sour at the prospect, Your Majesty. I will not ask for the beer when you have only promised the barley." Another orcish idiom, but this time he remains unflappable.
the trick not working a second time.
Damn. Instead, I let the smile fade, trying for a more sincere look, though masking my true nervousness that grows under his stony, piercing eye. Forgive me, I continue. I already forgot that you value plainness. Then, I will first be vulnerable to you, so that you might know that this is not a trick. He raises a brow and jerks his chin as if to indicate I should go on. So I do. I want to surrender to you, King Rognar. I trust your leadership more than I do the high-ranking nobles left by the former king, and they are those who will be considered to become the next king. I shudder to think what will happen to my people if those that share King Yorian's view of the world should rule them. I have shocked the orc, I think. Though his expression has not much changed, he has gone completely still, as if his large muscles are tensed and ready. Do not think about his muscles, I chide myself. Slowly, he responds in his grinding voice.
And yet you would trust one of the race that you despise ruling instead. I do not believe you, Queen. I think you flatter me with pretty words and think me a fool.
Now I am irritated, and I let it show, my next words hot. Why do you think I despise your race? Have I not honored your traditions, learned your culture? Why should I despise you? We look different from each other, it is true, but that can be said of all races. Indeed, all people. Does any one individual look like another? As for whether I trust you to rule, are your people not happy? Your lands prosperous? Your armies strong? You have led your people out from the shadows of a cruel king and into a time of general peace. I would have you do the same thing for my own kingdom and the people within.
Yet you line your wealth with explosives and seek to lead a mass suicide of females?
He queries, brows drawn and wary. I had to be sure that your bitterness and rightful rage over the provoking actions of the former king would not lead your response before you could see the potential of what I can offer as a partner instead of an enemy. I would see you rule my people, but with them as your subjects, not your slaves.
Then what is it you offer me?
He asks.
That I cannot get through the force of my own blade and horde.
Brides, I smile. Willing brides.
Chapter 5, Rognar. Willing brides. A siren's song. Orcs cannot have children within our own race. Created long ago by a forgotten god as naught but soldiers, we require the seed and wombs of other races to propagate. But our fearsome reputations, need for violence, and austere appearance do not lead to many volunteers. So there is a bride chase, a tradition of taking a partner to an isolated location to woo and chase like our blood demands. But though most are willing by the end of the chase, the feelings of affection or love are often fleeting, especially under the culture that was encouraged by kings like my sire and grandsire. In the end, they leave, or are killed by those that think they have the right to new mates. I think, grimacing at the thought of my mother. Though I know of a few, too few, happy matings, most are not. And orcs like me yearn for it. A true mating. Something forbidden under the reign of my father and near impossible besides. I peer at Queen Adalind, her smile fraying a little at the edges as she returns my gaze. Mine, my instincts growl again. She is brave, this human. The longer I am alone with her, clear of other sense, I can pick up her nerves. She speaks like a general, like a leader born. But knowing what I do of Yorian, I doubt this is a familiar position for hers. The queen is rising to the challenge before her, and she seems as if she prepared for this moment. But nothing can prepare her to be face to face with an orc that is considered terrifying to even his own people. So she feels fear. This is wise. I could kill her with a single snap of my wrist, before she could even think to scream, and she cannot know that I am fast approaching a time where I would cut off my own arms, before harming one hair on her shining head. Her spell weaves around me, her presence and melodious voice enacting a longing in me like I have never known. But I am a king, and I am not ruled by my wants. How can you promise such a thing? I ask, rising from my chair and taking a step around to the table, closing the distance between us. Will is not something that can be controlled or demanded, even by a witch queen like yourself. The name I have been calling her in my mind slips out, and I detect a whiff of offense in her faint scent. She must have taken orikiri leaves, I muse, as her scent is as faint as an orc's. She knows to hide her pheromones from us, I realize. Once again, I wonder who has schooled her so well to face us. It would not be an orc. We are close with our secrets. Our culture is a sacred thing to keep from other races that might mock or misuse it. And she does not strike me as an herbalist, with her long manicured nails free of green and dirt. Her reply interrupts my thoughts.
6 months ago, the former king declared war against you. Before it even began, I knew it to be a terrible folly, and within a week, I knew it to be one that he would not survive. I would not have the innocent common folk of this land pay for his foolish greed. So, for the last month, I have enacted a secret network, seeking out those that might wish to better their stations. I have, at my personal villa, some 30 women who have agreed to meet your orcs, and if an agreement is made between them, to be chaste. They have also agreed to stay with their orc for a time of no less than 5 years, with every intention of falling in love, excluding instances of abuse, at which point the agreement would be broken and void.
I want to snarl at the insult, at the thought that any of the orcs I have brought with me would harm a female. But I cannot. The stories she has likely heard are not all untrue. Such things went unpunished for a long time in Auric. But they are punished now. Harming a female is cause for death in my kingdom, I tell her, my glare daring her to disbelieve me. She does not. Instead, her breath hitches and her face takes a shocked, vulnerable cast.
Husbands cannot beat their wives in Auric?
She asks, the look on her features completely genuine, without even a hint of artifice. For the first time since I have seen her, delicate and unguarded. Not if they wish to keep their heads, I confirm, watching her eyes widen before she shudders her emotions again, a schooled expression settling on her breathtaking visage. But her shoulders lower a fraction, some of the distrust in her posture relaxing somewhat. The implication spears me. I will kill him again. I will find a necromancer and torture him until he begs, I will.
Then you will have already improved the stations of some of the women who have joined me,
she says, eyes flicking away from mine, seeking to conceal what she has just revealed to me. But I saw her face and the slight change in her scent. These brides already have mates. I am shocked and truly insulted this time. She thinks to make my bravest warriors the secondary mates of women already claimed by someone. She thinks to send us only scraps of what we truly want.
Had husbands,
she replies with clear emphasis before I can make my mounting offenses known.
Some are widows of husbands that were cruel, who wish for another chance for children and truer love. Some were in cruel marriages that I have dissolved and removed them from. There are still others that have never been with a male at all.
If they had such terrible experiences with human men, why would they seek a union with orcs? We are barbarians, after all. The human queen claims to not hate us or think poorly on orc kind, but I cannot imagine that someone as beautiful and fair as this fairy-touched vision would truly have no prejudices against a warrior race as brutal-looking as my own.
We have decided to place our trust in you, King Rognar, in your reputation with your people. What you have revealed to me about the new Orikesh law shows our hope was not in vain.
There are many meanings and hints beneath her words, but it is only one that spears me through, driving out all the other thoughts. "We," I grind out. "You will join this cache of willing brides. You will mate with an orc that chooses you?" She smiles, a look enticing yet not entirely real once again.
Of course. How could I ask the women of my kingdom to do something I myself am not willing to do? I am not that kind of queen.
The mating instinct in me goes wild, morphing to a biting, tearing thing. Mine, mine, mine. I am stunned, yet instinct wishes to propel me forward, to chase, to bite, to claim. It takes every ounce of my self-control to root myself to the spot, to freeze my wanting hands and even greater wanting heart. Queen Adalind does not seem to share my need for reticence. She walks forward gracefully on soft footsteps. She comes up to me, stopping only a finger's breadth away, her tantalizing scent wafting to me, the light in her eyes as she captures my gaze, luminous.
I will admit,
she says coyly,
there is one orc whose attentions I hope to attract more than all others. One to whom I have been drawn to since before I even met him. One that I would not mind chasing me.
Her flirtatious smile grows, and she reaches up to place her dainty hand over my roaring heart.
If he wants me, that is.
Then I scent it, over the enchanting smell of her body and the thrilling scent of her magic. Even through the mask of her Okiri tea, fear. She is playing with me, using me, telling me only what I want to hear. The thoughts surprise me with the level of hurt they conjure deep in my gut, a feeling almost akin to betrayal. Witch, to already have enchanted me so deeply after one meeting. But if she seeks to manipulate me so easily, then I will call her bluff, I think grimly. So, I rumble, my voice growing more scratchy with its frequent use. You wish to be my mate in all ways. I step closer, closing the scant distance between us so that our bodies are touching. The beautiful queen's diminutive frame forces her head all the way up if she wishes to keep my eyes. Her breath hitches on a small gasp. In fear, I wonder. Or something else. The sound is sweet, light, but I continue. Will you serve in my bed? Let me spread you, naked over my furs, and take your tight cunt over and over until I have had my fill. Choke on my cock and beg for more. Implore for my hands to be upon you and to mate you again and again until I get you with Kit. My blunt words work to shock her, and she gasps again. I knew it. She has no intention of backing up her claim. I scoff in disgust. You play with fire, enticing me this way, Witch Queen. The name works in rousing her ire again, banishing her carefully flirtatious, pleasant expression.
And you, King Rognar?
She snaps, anger flashing in her eyes, pressing herself more firmly against me. Likely it is meant to be a challenge, yet something settles within me, a feeling of rightness.
Will you serve in my bed?
She continues, demanding.
Will you be gentle and attentive, placing my pleasure equal to your own? Will you kneel between my thighs until I quiver and come and scream, without taking your own release? Would you allow me to lead, to mount, and take you? Would you be faithful and true and kind? Or would you be as cruel and selfish in bed as my husband was?
It is the first time she has called him husband. Until this moment, I have not thought of that mewling, puking, sorry excuse for a human that must have shared this woman's bed. Could her fear of the thought of me claiming her not come from my race, but her previous experience in bed? I barely keep my lip from curling in a snarl. The thought of that weak, cruel man coming anywhere near my mate makes me want to rend and kill. My mate. I have accepted that in my mind, and I am growing resigned to it. I think if someone tried to take her from me now, dangling in front of me like the sweetest of fruit, I would lose my mind. I will have her, my willing mate, and I would give her back this whole fetid human country to do it. She does not need to know that. Instead, I slowly kneel before her, where I have kneeled for no one since my father died, letting the inferno of my wanting burn into her with my gaze. Lift your skirt, Queen Adalind, and find out. This close to her center, her scent is stronger, and now along with her fear, no, nervousness. There it is. Arousal. unmistakable arousal. I cock a brow, challenging her. She stares at me, features vulnerable once again. Her fingers twitch toward her skirts. A slight telling gesture, and one I don't think she's aware of making. Her eyes dilate, and in that moment I know she does want me. Exquisite fairy-blessed beauty wants the scarred and ugly orc, with the broken voice and no sibilance. At least on my knees serving her, if nothing else. And that is enough. For now. Then the spell is broken. She breaks our connection and turns her head away. My heart falls, but then her hand is in my hair, stroking softly. It takes everything in me not to push against her hand like a war beast pup looking for a treat. A gentle sign that she is not rejecting me entirely.
Not now,
She whispers, embarrassment clear in her tone and a light flush sprinkling itself up her dainty neck.
They can hear.
They? Oh, my horde. She mentioned knowing our hearing was stronger than a human's. The idea of them hearing me pleasure this fey-like creature does not fill me with anxiety, but pride. Possession. Let them hear that she is mine, that she wants me. But she has said no. Not now. Then it will not be now, but later cannot come soon enough. Slowly, gently, as if approaching a frightened animal, I raise my hand, sheathing my claws completely, and take her hand in mine and raise it to my lips, kissing its back like a human knight paying homage to his queen. For though I am no human, she is my queen, or she will be. Her eyes widen and she takes a shuddering breath, a light scent of arousal wafting gently off the skin I hold so close to my face. She likes soft touches, this human queen. Soon enough I will give her enough to satisfy us both. Name your terms, witch queen, I say, no malice in my broken voice as I say the term. Her magics bother me no longer. She has completely enchanted me, pulled under her spell, and I can no longer bring myself to care. As long as they do not harm my people, they will be yours. But then I arrest her gaze with my own, spearing her as clearly as she has speared me. But then, Queen Adalind, you will be mine.
Chapter 6. Adalind. My hand still tingles and burns where the Orc King kissed me an hour later, sending little lightning shocks through my system whenever I think about it. Indeed, his words as he knelt before me, his soft challenge to do things to me that I have only ever heard about and never experienced. Attraction, arousal, disaster. I should not be attracted to him. He is an orc, for all the gods' sake. They are meant to be killing machines. The gods did not design them to be attractive. With his tusks and horns, I should not find him so. But I do. Oh, All-Mother, I do. All through negotiations, I could not stop thinking about it. While we argued over numbers and percentages, as he agreed to my idea of appointing both an orc and human regent of his newly won territory, even when he surprised me by insisting human males must be added to the willing partners for the shield maidens, or that we would need 50 of each, that damn kiss taunted me. Haunted me. I am meant to keep my head through this marriage as I did my first. I went into that one with hope, and it was swiftly and cruelly killed on my wedding night. Rognar is not the same as Yorian, true. Indeed, they could not be further from each other in bearing and personality. The Orc King, for one, rarely speaks in front of others, trusting his axe and shield to read his orders from his manor and relay them. Yorian barely stopped talking. He loved the sound of his voice so much. For another, his orcs actually respect him, esteem him even, rather than being only loyal to the crown he symbolically wears. Still, I cannot trust. I cannot. If I do, then when he disappoints me or outright betrays me, then pain will only be worse. No, I must use him, as he will undoubtedly use me. That innuendo makes me blush once again, an involuntary reaction I have never had to try to control before. Yet now it has happened many times in the space of one day. The idea of going to bed with Rognar is not repugnant to me. Surprisingly so. I had thought that Yorian had tortured out my ability to be attracted to anyone. But looking at my former husband's killer as he orders the Horde to prepare to move to the capital and carry the banner of peace I have prepared, I can't help but wonder what it would be like to touch and be touched without fear of pain, with actual wanting. I have heard the stories of the great loves told in the banquet hall by masterful bards. I have even walked into an illicit tryst between servants a time or two. I know it is meant to be pleasurable, euphoric even, to have a lover. I just thought I was incapable of such sensations. But with these new feelings arising in me, the way I enjoy watching the Orc King's rippling form, the shivers of pleasure his grinding voice sends across my skin, I allow myself the thought that perhaps it is not me that is broken. That, perhaps, it was Yorian with all his perversions and pain that could not rouse such feelings in me.
Dame Zira comes to my side with rigid posture, carrying our own banner of peace.
"We are ready to depart, Your Majesty." She is being very formal, and I cannot tell if it is because we are surrounded by orcs, or if she is still hurt by my mild rebuke earlier. I inwardly sigh.
For all her strength, Dame Zira's emotions are surprisingly tender beneath her gruff manner and thick armor.
Her bastard of a father never taught her to handle her feelings, only to shove them deep down and not show them. I will have to take her aside. Later.
"Thank you, Dame Zira,"
I say, trying to infuse my words with some warmth. "Please bring me my horse."
No,
interrupts a rumbling voice. I turn to see King Rognar, astride his massive war beast, the thing a mix between a huge wolf and an onyx dragon. "Excuse me?" I say, raising an eyebrow. He thinks to already begin commanding me. We are not even married yet. Not that I will appreciate such high-handedness later either.
you will ride with me.
Another command. I draw myself up to my full, if unimpressive height, letting ice coat my words. I don't know how to ride such a beast. Amusement sparkles in his eyes, the smallest of smiles playing at his mouth.
I will not let you fall.
7 times, damn him. It is hard to remain angry when he smiles. A little fluttering in my belly distracts me. Still, I cannot start this relationship on the wrong foot. I will not suffer another man to command me in all things ever again. I remain silent, staring into his eyes, a battle of wills happening between us. Finally, his smile widens, as if I have pleased him somehow.
Please, my queen.
He rumbles.
It would give me great pleasure.
A murmur of astonishment runs through his horde, but I could scarce pay it any mind. Instead, I war with myself for a moment. Riding with him will harm my dignity before my people, and I want to be seen as an equal. At the same time, being viewed as completely conquered so that the nobles cannot question our surrender before it is too late and I have cut their legs out from under them would be useful too. And there's that damned smile. All right, I acquiesce. But Dame Zira will ride at our side with our banner, while one of your orcs rides at the other with yours. A compromise. Humans and orcs at an equal place in the procession. A conquered queen riding with the Orc King. The best of both.
It will be done,
he says, another murmur moving through the surrounding throng. He reaches out his hand, claws sheathed, and I place my olive-skinned hand in his pine-green one. With little more than a tug, I fly through the air effortlessly and land in front of Rognar, his well-muscled arm holding me fast. My back is to his chest, and I can hear the thump-thump of his heartbeat. When I am situated to his liking, the Orc King nods to his axe, who shouts,
"Move out!"
The war beast begins to run, muscles bunching under fur and scale, a smoother ride than even my well-trained horse. The scenery moves around us in a blur, and I allow myself to relax, not fighting the rhythm of the ride as I prepare for the day's journey. We could get to the capital in just a few hours at this pace. But during negotiations, we agreed to ride slowly through the town and villages, a show of peace, and allow word to spread among the masses that we are at war no longer. Half my gold guard already left as soon as negotiations ceased to clear the way and announce our coming. I wished to avoid any unpleasant receptions from town guards or peasant militias. Anything that could start the war anew after all my planning and hard-won successes. Within an hour, the first village comes into view, and habitually I pull my veil over my face before any of my people can see me. Rognar looks questioningly towards me, frowning at my actions.
Why the covering?
He growls out in that low, rusty voice of his.
Is this some Adrikian custom?
I shake my head. The former king commanded that none but my inner circle could look on my blessing. The word slips from my lips with a bitter twist, despite my pleasant tones. My curse, more like. The orc king frowns, the expression emphasizing his small tusks frighteningly, though there is no anger in his posture, only confusion.
Why would he command such a thing? Was he not proud to have such a beautiful mate?
The bitterness in my chest builds. He was proud, I answer, fighting to keep my voice light, free from anger. I was among his favorite possessions. The king was concerned that my beauty would sow discord, and that too many would vie for my favor. He feared someone would try to take me. A grunt answers me, sounding like the orc version of a scoff.
Did he command so little respect in his men, then, that they would dare approach his mate in such a way? Or so weak that he cannot protect you from unwanted advances? Perhaps insecure about how well he could please you to make you wish to stay?
He tilts his head, considering.
Perhaps he worried that the offers from your admirers would lead you to stray from his bed.
I am both insulted and disgusted at the reminder of having to share Yorian's bed. No, not Yorian. The king. Detachment. Detachment is key. Now he is dead. I will never have to worry about his bed again. I turn my head, pulling my gaze away from Rognar, putting more steel in my spine to pull my back further from his chest. My loyalty is never, never in question, I bite out in crisp tones, once again liberally painting my words with ice. My word is my bond, and once made, nothing can entice me to break it. I feel, rather than see, his thoughtful nod above my head.
I suspected as much. Then your husband was foolish and weak.
His rough hand comes up to my face, and it takes all my resolve not to flinch. It surprises me to no end when his green fingertips gently grasp my chin, with a care that seems incongruous with the brutal orc behind me. He turns me back to face him again, capturing me with his black eyes.
I have no worries about our mating, Witch Queen. Your loyalty will be earned, and, as you will see on the morrow, your satisfaction my pleasure.
The last word is a growl. The ice in me melts as a molten sort of feeling rushes through my veins, leaving breathlessness in its wake. The morrow. Our wedding night. Another thing he insisted on. We will wed in the human custom tomorrow, and then the bride chase will be 2 weeks later under an auspicious blood moon, a symbolic time for his people, and he promises pleasure. How will I protect myself if he keeps saying such things? His thumb strokes my cheek, a light, reverent kind of gesture.
Do you like wearing this covering?
He asks. Do I like it? I never thought about it, truly. It was just something I had to do since the former king stole me from my father and placed me in noble fosterage. It protects me, I say, my voice slightly breathy.
I will protect you,
he says.
No one, human or orc, would dare cross you, mock you, or treat you with anything less than respect, or it will be the last thing they ever do.
A spell. He is weaving a spell on me, with his soft touch and brutal, beautiful words. He calls me Witch Queen, but the only magic I possess is in my face and rudimentary runes. Who is the true enchanter here?
If you like it,
he continues.
You may wear as many veils as you like. I will raid the Silk Isles and bring you back the lightest spider silk gossamer to cover your beauty. You will have hundreds of them, in colors only the gnome artisans know. But if you do not like it, if you were forced to wear it by that shitbrain Yorian, then know you are free from any of his directives. If any covet you, if they bring you attentions that make you uncomfortable, then they do so at their own doom.
Freedom. Only an enchanter who can peer into my soul and see my deepest desires would know to use such an enticing word. Do I like it? I barely notice it anymore. It simply is. If I go anywhere beyond my chamber, I wear it. If there is a possibility anyone might see me, I wear it. On the hottest day and the coldest night, I sit through banquets without eating, a shrouded statue, stomach rumbling. Where I go, there it is as well. Today is the first time in years anyone new has seen my face. Do I like it? Breathing the same air over and over, the obscured vision? Hiding when I have done nothing wrong? Do I wear it because it is safe? Or does it feel safe merely because it is familiar? Without thinking, I let go of the fabric and flutters to the ground, soon stomped to oblivion under the thundering steps of 100 warbeast. Rognar leans down to my ear and growls with approval.
Brave queen.
I have never been called brave before. Never even thought of myself that way. I just survive. That's all I do. Sometimes one must stand before a horde of 1,000 angry orcs and deny them what they want because that is the way to survive, and sometimes you cower in the corner while your husband takes his mistress in front of you while she screams and prays to any gods listening that you are not next. No, I do not think I am brave, but I like that he does. My musings are interrupted in a blink as a man wearing a worn mayoral seal and another man in shoddy armor race out of the village to meet us. The man, I assume, is the mayor, and as he smiles at us, opening his mouth to speak, he catches sight of me and promptly chokes.
Welcome, Your Majesties, to 𝐼𝐴𝐴 Village. We are proud to host your wedding processional and are pleased to hear of the peace accords. Welcome, welcome.
The stares of him and his town guard make me uncomfortable. I am not used to them anymore. But I do not wish for Rognar to relieve them of their heads just for looking at me, so I straighten and give my practice smile. Thank you for your welcome, good sir. We will now proceed.
You will not stay a moment?
The man looks besottedly at me, ignoring Rognar completely.
Perhaps speak to your people?
I consider it for a moment, but I want to say no. At this rate, it will take longer than a day to get back to the castle, and I apparently have a wedding to plan. To my right, the king's axe speaks.
We will not stay. You still have much ground to cover.
And with that, the processional lurches forward again without waiting for the mayor's reply. Ragnar's arm tightens around my waist, but other than that, makes no comment. Villagers line the main street, but they do not look as happy as the mayor to see us. A wariness and fearful energy hover over the crowd. Luckily, I planned for this, and gestured to Dame Zira for my satchel. I have imbued it with a vault charm, and, though it is small and light, it is very full. I reach in and take coins of gold and enchanted stones that turn to food when tapped against a table. I fling a handful out on one side, then the next, and Dame Zira, in her most austere, knightly voice, starts the cry. Long live Queen Adalind! Long live King Rognar! It takes but a moment for the people to see the precious boons, a tradition of royal weddings, before they dive for them and take up the call. Long live Queen Adalind! Long live King Rognar!
What are you doing?
The orc king grumbles in my ear. I will explain when we leave, I whisper back. But for now, help me throw. I tense, expecting resistance from him against my ordering of him, but instead he shrugs, reaches into the bag, and tosses the coins and stones much farther than my paltry efforts. Still, the symbolism is the point, and so we both work to shower 𝐼𝐴𝐴 with plenty before we reach the end of the road and are in the countryside once more.
So?
Rognar rumbles, kicking up the pace of his mount, talking more loudly to be heard over the stomping of the hooves and feet.
Tell me what that was about.
I try to speak, but the roar is too loud. Exasperated, I turn in the saddle, sliding my arms around his shoulders for stability, and place my lips next to his ear. The Orc King goes rigid in my arms, and something hard begins to dig into my hip. Alarmed, but slightly curious, I resolve to ignore the tension rising between us, and say into his ear, "It is an Adrikian royal tradition called the Shower of Plenty. When a royal weds, the processional brings coin and bread to symbolize the bounty their union will bring to the people, and bestows it on all that wish them well. It is much loved by the common folk."
And you brought it in anticipation of me succumbing to your demands.
He answers, grinding voice sounding amused. "Not anticipation," I reply. "Merely a hope. I wish for the people to view the merger of our kingdoms favorably."
And so you bribed them.
The statement is not critical, even as the words he uses are blunt. He sounds amused? Maybe even approving. I do not know what to do with his warmth. So instead, I don't reply and turn back in my seat. The hard thing at my hip now digs into my rump, and I find myself blushing once more. Rognar rumbles in his chest, a grinding, deep sound, and holds me slightly tighter against him. For a moment, I feel bound and begin to panic. These are not ropes or chains, I tell myself, forcing my body to relax. It is merely the Orc King's arm, and he would let you go if you asked. This last thought I do not know for sure, but surely his men would not trust and love him so much if he were a cruel tyrant. The boy with the protective streak and soft heart from Alelia's stories would let me go, and attracting the king, enticing him to my side, is a pivotal part of my plot to take the kingdom from those that would run it to the ground. So I stay, the king's arousal pressed against me, tight to his chest, and breathe through my panic. I will let Yorian control no part of me. He is dead, and I am free. We stay like this for hours, as we travel through one village and then the next. They all go like the first. People stunned by my face, but stony and frightened of the horde, until the Shower of Plenty. Whenever a town leader tries to speak to Rognar, however, his axe, Gunag, or shield, Urim, answers for him, while he glowers over the human crowd. Finally, I cannot take my curiosity any longer, and at the next slow moment I ask, "Why do you only speak before me or to your advisors?" He chuffs a laugh behind me.
Do you not already know, with the breadth of knowledge you possess about orcs? Can you not guess?
I frown, the question unsettling me. Is there something I am forgetting? Some bit of culture or protocol? I search my memory and come up with naught. My knowledge must be lacking, I say reluctantly, a little annoyed, for I can think of nothing. Will you not tell me? Rognar laughs, still a soft thing, and replies,
I will tell you a truth in exchange for a truth. Where did you get all of your information on my people? The bride chase and our sayings. You know much for one who has never been to my lands.
How do you know I have not? I challenge. He shrugs behind me.
Because my border spies would have noticed you immediately, Witch Queen. And when they would have brought you to me, I would have kept you.
His words are not meant to be threatening, but something in me freezes and shivers. Being kept, as he says, puts me too much in the position of an object, a thing. That was how the former king treated me, and no one much cares for how they treat a thing. I fight back a shudder. It is the first thing Rognar has said that I do not like. Foreboding blankets my heart. Then he continues.
But it is well that it did not happen this way, is it not? I would have repeated the mistakes of my forebears, and you would have hated and tried to run from me. This way, I will have you willing, won't I?
The cruel grip on my heart begins to release. He wants me to be willing. It seems important, valuable to him, like Malelia said it would be. Things cannot be willing. Only people. Equals. I relax a fraction, the dread slowly draining out of me, though I remain wary. Yes, King Rognar. I respond. I am willing.
Good,
He says, his voice gruff, but I can hear he is pleased.
Now, will you trade information with me? My secret for yours.
The way he words it makes me laugh. His hand spasms on my waist slightly as I do, but I dismiss it as a cramp. Riding all day takes it out of all of us. Indeed, my backside is feeling quite sore. His grinding arousal is not that comfortable to sit against. I do not consider a secret, though I will gladly do this exchange with you.
Then tell me, what is your source?
I smile, thinking of Malalia. One of my ladies-in-waiting was also my governess as a young lady. She was once an orc bride. Rognar tenses behind me, but remains silent, so I go on. Her mate was not kind to her, though I suppose he was at first, because after the bride chase, she stayed with him and never tried to leave. She learned much about his land and people. He was not always faithful, but her people are more fluid about such arrangements, and she worked to still please him. But after she bore his child, he lost all softness. He would say cruel things and even hit her. He began to openly fornicate with other women, trying to get them pregnant. Nothing she did could make him happy, but she stayed for her child. Then, one night, he came to her, all soft again, and she welcomed him to her bed, hoping things would go back to the way they were at first. But in the heat of his passion, he did something he never meant to do.
He claimed her,
Rognar states, his voice even rougher than usual.
didn't he?
Yes, I agree. Then he was stuck. He could no longer have children with anyone else. His solution was to kill her. But she figured out his plan and ran. She ran and ran until she came to the Grimble estate where I was a ward. I found her when I was out for my constitutional, and Duke Grimble wanted to have her put to death for trespassing. But I begged and pleaded. King Yorian was visiting that day to check my progress. He was waiting very impatiently for me to reach the age of adulthood so that he could marry me without scandal. I begged him for the boon of keeping her, and he agreed, in exchange for my first kiss. The Orc King goes very still behind me, the hand on the reins of the war beast clenching so tightly the veins seem to pop out of his skin.
How old were you?
This is not a pleasant part of the story. 16.
How old was he?
30. He growls. Growls in a way I have not heard him do before. There is violence in the sound.
I should have let him loose in my horde like they wanted instead of giving him a king's death.
He grinds out, furious. Something about his anger on my behalf, channeled toward an old enemy of mine, soothes me. I touch my hand to his clenched fist, stroking it softly. His skin is scarred, calloused like a warrior should be. But there are places that are still touchable and pleasing to my fingers. It was a small favor to bestow in exchange for someone's life. I have no regrets. The statement is a little untrue. I was very young and naive at the time. My foster parents were cold and neglectful of me, and in the mind of a young girl who often got lost in tales of romance, I had hoped that I would have had a good first kiss. I had even hoped the handsome, older Yorian would be the one to do it and take me from my misery. That kiss should have told me hope was foolish. It had been cold and wet, with a tongue so far in my mouth that had almost gagged me. But in exchange for Malalia's life, I would do it again. 100 times. The hand that had been around my waist suddenly grabs my hand, stilling it, then weaves his fingers with mine.
Grant me no small favors, Adalind.
He says sternly.
When we wed, I only want you to touch me if you wish to, not because you feel you must to get what you want. Anything you want, just ask. And if it's in my power, I will give it to you freely.
I melt inside at his words. Oh, so dangerous. I have known him for less than a day, and with every word he dismantles my defenses. but his words rouse a curious instinct in me. I do want to touch him, to give him softness for pleasing me with no expectation of something in return. Before my courage can fail me, I raise our joined hands to my lips and give the back of his a fleeting kiss. All right, I agree. No small favors.